Well, what's acceptable then? Should we go back to 10 to 1 as a limit?
Well, are you asking me what I would do if I had all the power?
Yes.
I would turn investment banking back into a very boring utility-like business, which it was when I was young. All they would be doing was helping people issue stocks and bonds, acting as an honest stockbroker, and market making with limited inventories, and having the commodity trading and the oil trading and the leverage derivatives, and that would all be gone. I would have them right back in a boring business, and I would limit the amount they could have. I wouldn't let them have these internal hedge funds, which in effect were using the government's credit to do any damn thing they pleased with no limit. And they have proven that they can't be trusted with such powers. And I think the correct thing to do is to take the powers away. They can divide in two. If they've got a bunch of people that are good at oil trading and speculative trading, and of course I would go back to controlling margin credit. Effective control of margin credit in this country disappeared when we allowed the derivatives. And it was this class and their lobbying that gave us all these new derivatives that prevented effective control of margin lending against securities. The first letter on that subject, when they brought in the option exchanges, the only letter I remember in opposition was signed by Warren Buffett. He said, "We don't need this." I think Warren was right then, and I think I'm right now. We do not need these people doing this vast skein of activities with this miasma of super profits and a lot of gross immorality in terms of the way they deal with the customers. The derivative traders have tended to rook their own customers. That's not a pretty sight. It's a dirty business.
It's a dirty business. I mean, this is a stance you've held for at least the past few years, if not longer, in 2007.
From the inception.
You talked about...
Nobody was the least bit interested in anything we have to say except now.
And in 2007, you warned about it, saying, this is going to cause a lot of trouble. It may be highly profitable now, but it'll cause a lot of trouble. You foresaw a lot of what happened on the derivatives front, but did anything surprise you in terms of just how bad, how catastrophic it became?
Yes, I think the gross size of it. Even someone as realistic about human nature as I am was surprised by the extent of the folly and evil.
You talk about new rules in the game a lot. And how will those new rules that we see after the government eases back a little bit and we have many more congressional hearings and some new rules are adopted, others fall by the wayside. How do you foresee that affecting Berkshire? Or does it not? Well,
it indirectly affects the companies whose securities we own. The other interesting question of morality and decency is consumer lending. And I would argue that the major non-investment banks have by and large misbehaved in consumer lending. They have had a marketing model which is the equivalent of a liquor company that seeks out the people very susceptible to alcoholism and tries to suck them into alcoholism. That is not a pretty model. In fact, it's an ugly, indecent model. And I think that the president is exactly right when he says he's going to impose limits on what leading banks using the credit of the United States to exist can do in terms of abusing the lending to the fiscaholics. The fiscaholics deserve some protection from their own government. They can't help themselves.
You and Warren like Wells Fargo. You love Wells Fargo. Yeah. I mean, you'd own more of it if you could. Isn't Wells Fargo guilty of a lot of these actions on the mortgage front?
I think they were way better than almost anybody else of similar size.
But it's like being the best kid in detention, no?
Well, who is totally free from fault? If I ran Wells Fargo, there would be a few things that I would change. But if you average out Wells Fargo, it's behaved both wisely and and with more morality than most others.
Why do you think that is? Norwest really took over Wells Fargo. It kept the Wells Fargo name. Does that have anything to do with the fact that it was a Midwestern bank? It had a different mentality?
To some extent, I think that's true. But Wells Fargo, when we bought into it for the first time, was not allied with Northwest. And it had a very good culture compared to other banks. So to some extent, they were marrying one good culture with another. There's a reason why we consider it a much better bank than most of the other big banks.